It started on a Thursday, the kind of bland, uneventful day that normally passed without a ripple. I just gotten back from work, loosened my tie like I always did, and poured a double bourbon, again like I always did. Lauren was in the kitchen, barefoot and humming softly, her voice barely audible over the gentle hiss of something simmering on the stove. We'd been married 10 years. No kids, by choice at least initially. Somewhere between building careers and chasing comfort, time just slipped. Sex had become routine, if it happened at all. We still kissed goodbye in the morning, but the way you might kiss a relative. Soft, closed-lipped. Empty. That night, she set down her wine glass and looked at me with this odd glint in her eye, like anticipation laced with guilt. I've been reading about open marriages, she said, her words slow and deliberate. I laughed, short and confused, thinking it was a joke. Like polyamory? Swingers? That kind of thing. She nodded. Kind of. I mean, I like wild orgies or anything. Just something different. Something to shake things up. We're in a rut, and you know it. A rut. That word hit harder than I expected. I stared at her, unsure whether to be angry, insulted, or just stunned. My first instinct was to shut it down, to scoff and say, hell no. But I didn't. I asked questions. How long had she been thinking about it? Was there someone already? Was this a way of easing into a confession? She swore there wasn't. Just an idea, a fantasy maybe, something she stumbled across in a podcast, then dove into online. Reddit threads, articles, testimonials of people who found new intimacy through letting go of monogamy. She made it sound like an awakening. Me? I felt like she just cracked open the ground beneath our feet. Still, I didn't say no. That's what haunts me the most. Maybe I was too numb to protest. Maybe I was just curious about what she might do or about what I might be allowed to do in return. Or maybe I'd already started to feel something dying between us, long before her proposal. We agreed on rules. The kind of lifelines couples give themselves when they're trying to control the uncontrollable. No friends, no coworkers, full honesty, always safe. If it got too messy, we'd pull the plug. Just a trial, she said. An experiment. The following weekend, she downloaded some dating app. One of those ones specifically for ethically non-monogamous couples. I watched her scroll through photos on the couch. Her expression a mix of excitement and embarrassment. When she caught me looking, she smiled and kissed me on the cheek like I was some supportive roommate. I told myself I didn't care. Told myself I was fine. But that same night, while she was in the shower, I poured myself another bourbon and opened up Facebook. Muscle memory led me to a name I hadn't typed in years. Kate Reynolds. Kate, my ex-fiancée. The woman I almost married before Lauren came along. Her profile hadn't changed much. Same sharp blue eyes in her profile photo. Still wore her hair in that messy, unbothered bun I used to love undoing. Still had that little tattoo on her wrist. The one she used to trace when she was anxious or when we were lying in bed, legs tangled, talking about the future. I sent her a message without thinking. Hey, random, I know. Just saw your profile and thought I'd say hi. Hope life's treating you well. I didn't expect a response. I mean, it had been nearly a decade since we last spoke. But 20 minutes later, a ping. Wow, talk about a blast from the past. Hi yourself. Want to catch up? That was the moment everything shifted. Lauren didn't know I had messaged her. I didn't lie. I just didn't offer the information. After all, wasn't that the whole point of her suggestion? Freedom, exploration, a little risk. I just happened to reach into my past, rather than some stranger from an app. Kate and a message for hours. Talking felt effortless again. She still laughed with haha instead of emojis. Still remembered my favorite bourbon. Still remembered the song that played the first time we made love, Yellow Ledbetter of all things. I asked if she was seeing anyone. She wasn't. Single and thriving, she said with a wink. I didn't tell her about the open marriage. Not yet. I wanted her to talk to me like she used to, like I still mattered. By the time Lauren came out of the shower in a towel, cheeks flushed and glowing with anticipation, I was still staring at the screen. Her voice cut through my days. A match with someone, she said casually. Oh, I replied, looking up. That was fast. She smiled. His name's Evan. Divorced. 42. Former Marine. Look strong. She said that last part slowly, like she wanted me to react. I didn't. Instead, I kissed her goodnight, rolled over, and laid in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message from Kate. Still can't believe it's you. Maybe we should meet up sometime. I'd like that. I didn't hesitate. I like that too. And just like that, Pandora's box was open. The coffee shop we picked was halfway between our neighborhoods, neutral ground. It was the kind of place with reclaimed wood tables, slow jazz playing in the background, and a smell of roasted beans and honey that clung to your clothes long after you left. I got there early. Not intentionally. I just couldn't sit in the house knowing she was out with Evan, probably smiling that smile she'd stopped giving me months ago. My fingers tapped against the ceramic mug as I waited, stomach flipping in a way I hadn't felt in years. First dates never made me this nervous. But this wasn't a first date. It was a reunion with a woman I once planned to marry. When Kate walked in, I didn't see her right away. It was the sound of her laugh, low, unfiltered, unguarded, that hit me first. I turned, and there she was, standing just inside the doorway, scanning the room. And then she saw me. God, she still looked like the version of her that lived in my memories, except more grounded, wiser. Her hair was a touch darker than I remembered, now worn loose over her shoulders. She wore a soft gray sweater, jeans that hugged her hips just right, and those same black boots she always insisted were stupid comfortable. I stood up, awkward as hell, and we hugged. Not tight, but not distant either. Familiar. Her scent, vanilla, maybe lavender, took me straight back to nights tangled up in her sheets, mornings with messy hair and slow kisses. You look exactly the same, she said, stepping back with a smile that hit me right in the gut. I chuckled, trying to hide how hard it hit. You look better than I remembered, and that's saying something. We sat, and for the first few minutes, it was light, safe. Work, family, what we've been doing all these years. She'd been engaged once, but it didn't stick. A tech guy from Seattle. Too cold, too clinical. She said it like it didn't bother her, but her eyes shifted just enough for me to catch the sting. And then it happened, the moment we stopped talking about the present and started peeling back the layers of the past. I still think about that night in Asheville, she said, looking over her mug. I swallowed. The cabin. She nodded. You lit that fire with one match and looked at me like you just conquered Everest. You were wearing that oversized hoodie, the one that slipped off your shoulder. Her eyes locked on mine. You kissed me like we were the only two people left in the world. That silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full. I could feel the air shifting between us. Something unspoken rising. I never got closure, I said finally. Not really. You left a note on my pillow, remember? No explanation. Just, I'm sorry. That was it. Her jaw tensed. I know. I've regretted that every day since. Why'd you do it? She looked away, fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Fear, mostly. I was scared of how right it felt. Like it was too perfect, and I didn't trust it to last. I wasn't ready for that kind of love. Neither was I, probably, I admitted. But I would have fought for it. For you. Her eyes shimmered then, not quite tears, but something close. Would you still? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The tension had already shifted from nostalgic to something else. Something that lived just under the skin. That unspoken, what if, now hovering between every breath. We talked for another hour, maybe more, about everything and nothing. She laughed at my dumb jokes. I watched the way her mouth curved when she smiled, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was deep in thought. And somewhere in there, the weight of Lauren and Evan and this so-called experiment began to blur at the edges. When we stood to leave, she lingered beside me at the door. You free next week? She asked, a spark in her eye. Yeah, I said without hesitation. Absolutely. As we stepped outside, she pulled me into a hug again. Longer this time. Her lips brushed the edge of my jaw. Not a kiss, not quite, but enough to make my whole body tense with something I hadn't felt in years. Desire. I watched her walk away, hips swaying gently, and I felt like I was 26 again. Hungry, alive, terrified. When I got back in my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Evan wants to see me again tomorrow. He's interesting. I like him. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady and cold. Then I swiped the message away, opened Kate's text thread, and typed, I haven't stopped thinking about you since the coffee shop. Let's do dinner. Just you and me. Her reply came seconds later. I was hoping you'd say that. And just like that, the door was wide open. Not just the one between me and Kate, but the one between who I had been and who I was about to become. It started with a drink. Not the coffee shop kind. Not the casual, just catching up version. This time it was late. The lighting was low, the table was intimate, and the bottle of Malbec we shared was already half empty by the time our entrees arrived. Kate looked stunning, more so than I had any right to handle. Her dress was black, simple, clinging in just the right places, and cut low enough to hint without revealing. Her perfume drifted across the table like memory itself, familiar and dangerous. I couldn't stop looking at her collarbone or the way her lips moved when she sipped from her glass. We talked about lighter things that night. Music, movies we used to love, places we said we'd travel to but never did. But under it all, there was that low hum of electricity, the kind that starts deep in your chest and coils downward with every sideways glance, every brush of a hand. When she reached for the check and our fingers touched, it felt like a current ran up my arm. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Outside, the street was quiet. The night had that warm breeze you only get for a few weeks in spring, soft, teasing, full of potential. We stood beside her car, neither of us moving to say goodbye. I shouldn't ask, she said, her voice low and uncertain. But, do you want to come up for a bit? I didn't hesitate. The door to her apartment clicked shut behind us like the world locking away everything that wasn't her and me. She kicked off her heels, poured us each a nightcap, whiskey this time, and led me to the couch. We sat close, our knees brushing now, and then like some unspoken countdown was ticking between us. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I was sure, I replied. There was a pause. Heavy, loud in its silence. Do you remember, she asked, eyes searching mine, that night in your old apartment, after your cousin's wedding, when we danced in the living room to no music? I nodded. You wore my shirt, and nothing else. Her lips curved, soft and sultry. You kissed me like you couldn't breathe without me. I couldn't, and then the silence broke, not with words, but with movement. She leaned in, slowly, hesitantly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. Our mouths met in that familiar, devastating way that made my whole body ache. There was no urgency at first, just exploration, memory, reverence. Her lips were softer than I remembered, her breath warm against my cheek. When her hand slid to my thigh, I exhaled sharply, like something inside me had snapped loose. Her body folded into mine as I pulled her onto my lap, her legs straddling me, the kiss deepening. My hands found her hips, her lower back, the heat of her skin beneath the thin fabric of her dress. We moved like people who had unfinished business, like we'd waited a decade for this moment to reclaim what we lost. When she stood, breathless, and took my hand, guiding me toward her bedroom, I followed without a word. The moment her dress fell to the floor, I felt that ache swell into something primal. Her skin glowed in the soft light, and all I could think about was how much I wanted to worship every inch of her. Slowly, thoroughly. We didn't rush, not even when our clothes were gone and our hands were roaming freely. We took our time, kissing, touching, teasing, like we needed to relearn each other. Like it wasn't just about sex. It was about us. I traced the tattoo on her wrist with my mouth, the same one she used to press against my chest when she curled into me. Her hands explore my back, my chest, my hips, possessive but reverent. She whispered my name more than once, and each time, it lit me up from the inside out. When I finally slid into her, she gasped, not out of surprise, but recognition, like something had returned. We moved together slowly at first, her legs wrapping around me, her nails digging into my shoulders. She arched into me with every thrust, her breath hot in my ear, and I lost myself completely in her. Not just in her body, but in the way she looked at me, like I was the only man who had ever touched her like this, ever made her feel like this. There was nothing casual about it, nothing experimental. It wasn't the kind of sex you have when you're curious. It was the kind of sex you have when something buried deep has clawed its way to the surface and refused to stay hidden. We didn't speak for a long time afterward. We just lay tangled in sheets, her fingers resting on my chest, our bodies slick with sweat and soft with exhaustion. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, unsure if I felt guilty or whole, or maybe both. Eventually, she murmured, "Was that a mistake?" I turned my head and looked at her, eyes raw, voice low. "If it was, I want to make again." She smiled, sad, maybe, but also satisfied. "I missed you," she whispered. "I never stopped missing you." And right there, in the quiet after our storm, I realized something. This wasn't just a fling born of a failing marriage. This was the beginning of something I wasn't ready to admit. Lauren had given me permission to explore. She just didn't realize I was about to fall in love all over again with the one that got away. I didn't go home that night. I texted Lauren around midnight, saying I'd had one too many drinks and was crashing at a buddy's place to avoid driving drunk. She sent back a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. No suspicion. No follow-up questions. Just a tiny symbol that somehow said more than words ever could. When I finally did go home the next morning, Kate's taste still lingered on my lips. My skin still carried the warmth of her body. Every step into our house felt like trespassing, like I'd broken into my own life. Lauren was in the kitchen, wearing leggings and an oversized tee, sipping coffee with her hair up in a messy bun. She looked peaceful, carefree even. I hated how much that bothered me. "Hey," I said casually, setting my keys in the dish by the door. She glanced at me, smiled faintly. "Morning, or should I say afternoon?" I checked the time. 12:06 p.m. "Sorry, crashed at Tyler's. We were up late." She shrugged. "No worries. Evan came by last night." My throat tightened. "Oh yeah." She didn't look at me when she spoke. "Yeah, we had dinner. Watched a movie. Nothing serious. Right?" I said, forcing a neutral tone. "How's that going?" She hesitated. "He's different. Direct. Confident." I wasn't sure if she meant to say the things I wasn't. I nodded slowly and made my way upstairs to shower. I stood under the hot water until my skin turned red, as if I could wash away the guilt, the sin of Kate, the way she had whispered my name in the dark. But no matter how long I stood there, the truth clung to me. Over the next few weeks, everything became a delicate dance. Lauren and I operated like polite roommates, sometimes affectionate, sometimes distant. We didn't fight. We didn't pry. We didn't ask where the other had been or who they'd been with. On the surface, it was the arrangement we'd agreed to. But below that surface, things were shifting fast. Kate and I saw each other as often as we could. Quick lunches, late-night meetups. The passion didn't fade, it deepened. The sex wasn't just physical anymore. It had turned emotional, intimate in a way I hadn't experienced in years. We talked for hours afterward, about what we missed, what we feared, what we regretted. One night, while lying in her bed, she asked, "Do you think you're falling for me again?" I didn't answer right away. I traced lazy circles on her bare back, listening to her breathing. "I think I never stopped," I finally said. She turned her face toward me. "What about Lauren?" I closed my eyes. I don't know, but I did. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Back home, the guilt started creeping into the spaces between Lauren and me. She became more observant, more cautious with her words. I caught her watching me sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, long, quiet stares full of questions she wasn't ready to ask. One night, while we sat on the couch half watching a movie, she leaned against my shoulder. It was the first time she'd done that in months. Her head was light, familiar, and yet I felt like I was cheating on Kate now, too. "How's work been?" she asked suddenly. "Busy," I said, instantly guarded. "We've got 2 new projects starting. You've been out a lot lately." "Yeah," I nodded. "Late meetings." She said nothing for a moment, then shifted slightly. "Do you ever think about us?" I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "Just how we got here. How we ended up so far apart that this." She waved vaguely at the air between us. Felt like our best option. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to blame her. Part of me wanted to admit I'd already gone too far to turn back. But mostly I felt hollow, stranded somewhere between 2 lives. "We lost something," I said, "somewhere along the way." I'm not sure when. She nodded. I keep wondering if we can find it again. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? That I had already found something else? Someone else? That same night, Kate texted me. Can I see you tomorrow? I miss you. I stared at the message, my heart splitting in two. Lauren shifted beside me, curling into my side like she used to. Let's do dinner Friday, she said quietly. Just us. No phones. No distractions. Yeah, I replied. Sure. But even as I said it, I was already thinking about Kate. About her lips. Her laugh. The way she made me feel like a man again, not just a husband playing a part. I told myself I could manage it. Keep both worlds separate. Live the lie a little longer. But deep down, I knew the truth was catching up to me. Secrets never stay quiet for long. It was supposed to be a casual get-together. One of those little things we used to do with our shared circle of friends. People who'd known us as a couple for years. The kind of group that didn't ask many questions when things shifted subtly, but everyone still noticed. A birthday party hosted by Danny, one of Lauren's coworkers. A backyard barbecue, beer on tap, and those string lights Lauren always said made everything feel cinematic. I hadn't planned on bringing Kate, but things between us had grown more serious, fast. And I think part of me wanted to be seen with her to show her that she wasn't just some secret I was keeping in the shadows. I hadn't told her Lauren might be there, and I sure as hell didn't expect Lauren to bring Evan. But life has a brutal sense of timing. Kate looked stunning that night. Denim skirt, soft green blouse, hair curled just enough to catch the light when she laughed. I watched her from across the yard as she chatted with two women I didn't recognize. She looked completely comfortable, unaware of the slow-motion wreck I saw forming just beyond her line of sight. Lauren arrived an hour in. I saw her first, her heels clicking on the patio, her hand casually on Evan's arm like they'd done this dozens of times. She was wearing that black wrap dress she knew fit her like a second skin. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked and immediately hating myself for it. She didn't see me right away, but then I saw her gaze freeze, mid-laugh, just over Evan's shoulder. She had seen Kate, and then she saw me. There was a moment, 3 seconds, maybe 4, where her face gave everything away. Confusion, recognition, jealousy, and the sudden, dawning realization that this wasn't just some fling. That the man she was experimenting with was slipping away, piece by piece. Kate turned toward me at that moment, smiling, totally oblivious. Want another drink? She asked, touching my arm. Before I could answer, Lauren was walking toward us, solo now, her heels stabbing the grass with every step like she was trying to leave a mark. Hi, she said to Kate, voice light but sharp around the edges. Kate turned, smile polite. Hey, I'm Kate. Lauren's smile was tight, brittle. Lauren, I'm his wife. Kate blinked, a little thrown. Oh, there it was. The word hung there, heavy and awkward, and I watched the realization dawn in Kate's eyes. She hadn't known Lauren would be here. She hadn't even asked. Lauren turned to me, eyebrows raised. No heads up, huh? I cleared my throat, trying to remain calm. I didn't know you'd be here, either. Well, she said, giving Kate a once-over that was anything but subtle. This is interesting. Kate's face hardened just a little. Nice to meet you, Lauren. The silence was suffocating. Evan, mercifully or foolishly, chose that exact moment to approach. Hey, babe, he said to Lauren, slipping an arm around her waist. Everything cool? Peachy, Lauren replied without taking her eyes off me. I felt like I was standing between two open flames. I need a drink, Kate said suddenly, turning and walking toward the bar. I followed her instinctively, ignoring the daggers Lauren was throwing at my back. When I caught up to her, she was staring blankly in her wine glass. I didn't know, she said quietly. You didn't tell me she might be here. I didn't plan this, I said. I didn't even want to come. She looked at me then, eyes searching. Are you in love with her? That hit harder than I expected. No, I said, maybe too fast. I don't think so. You don't think so? She repeated, the edges of her voice sharpening. That's not something you're supposed to be vague about. I'm here with you, I said, stepping closer. Doesn't that tell you something? She stared at me for a long time. It tells me I'm in the middle of something I didn't sign up for. I'll talk to her, I promised. This isn't how I wanted any of this to happen. No, she said softly, turning away. But it happened anyway. The rest of the night was a blur. I caught glimpses of Lauren, laughing too loudly, clinging a little too tightly to Evan. She was performing, but not for him. For me. For Kate. For anyone watching. When we left, Kate barely spoke. I drove her home in silence, the air between us cold and fragile. At her door, she turned to me. You need to figure out what you're doing, okay? I know. No, I don't think you do, she said, her voice trembling slightly. You can't keep one foot in both lives. Sooner or later, you're going to tear someone apart. She kissed me, soft and slow, but there was a sadness in it that hadn't been there before. Then she stepped inside and closed the door. I stood there for a long time, the weight of everything pressing down like a storm cloud. Back home, Lauren was already in bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She didn't speak when I came in. Neither did I, but the silence between us wasn't quiet anymore. It was war. Lauren didn't say anything for 3 days. Not a word about Kate. Not a passive-aggressive comment. Not a subtle dig. She just smiled like nothing had happened, kissed me on the cheek like everything was fine, and went about her routine with an eerie, rehearsed ease. It was worse than shouting. Worse than a meltdown. This wasn't silence. It was calculation. And I knew what she was doing. She was waiting for me to confess. But I didn't. I buried myself in work. I avoided home as much as I could. And when I was there, I kept the conversation surface level. Groceries. Schedules. The weather. Underneath it all, the tension was unbearable. Like a wire pulled tight, just waiting for the right touch to snap. It came the following Saturday. I walked into the kitchen late in the afternoon, fresh from a workout, sweat still drying on my skin, shirt damp against my chest. Lauren was at the island, sipping iced coffee and scrolling on her iPad. She didn't look up. You seeing her tonight? She asked casually, like she was asking if I wanted pizza or pasta. I froze mid-step. What? Kate. She finally looked up. You seeing her tonight? I hesitated. That tiny pause was everything. She nodded like she expected it. You should know she messaged me. My stomach dropped. What? On Instagram. Said she didn't realize I'd be at the party. Wanted to clear the air. Very polite. Very careful. I didn't know what to say. Lauren set the iPad down slowly. You lied to me. We agreed we could see other people. I said, voice tight. That was your idea. Don't you dare throw that back at me. She snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. I gave you honesty. You gave me secrets. I stepped closer. You've been sleeping with Evan. Yes, she said without hesitation. I told you. I've been transparent about it. Because you don't care the way I do. No, she said coldly. Because I didn't fall in love with him. Her words hit like a punch. I looked away, jaw tight. I didn't plan for that to happen. She laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't. Affairs never start with a plan. Just a spark. A look. A night. She's not an affair. Oh, come on. Lauren's eyes were wild now, her composure cracking. You spent our anniversary with her, didn't you? I froze. She had me. How did you? You're not as subtle as you think, she snapped. The canceled dinner. The vague excuse. And then I saw the photo. What photo? She posted a glass of wine. That goddamn green blouse. Same one she wore to the party. Same ring on the middle finger. And I saw your shadow in the background. Silence felt like a weight between us. She's not just sex, I said softly. No, louding whispers. She's your exit plan. I felt exposed. Naked. Like she had peeled me down to the core. You checked out of this marriage long before I ever mentioned an open relationship, she said, her voice trembling. You just didn't have the guts to say it out loud. That's not fair. Isn't it? She snapped. You think I wanted this? You think I enjoyed watching you fade away? Do you know how long I waited for you to reach for me again? I stepped toward her, but she backed away. I tried, I said, voice rough. I swear I did. But we stopped being this a long time ago. And instead of fighting for it, she said, eyes brimming now, you went and found someone who made you feel something again. Can you blame me? Yes, she shouted. Because you never gave me the chance to be that person again. I swallowed the lump in my throat, every nerve in my body screaming. You want the truth? I said. I didn't expect to fall for her. But I did. And now I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Lauren looked at me like I was already a memory. You know exactly what you're doing. You're just afraid to admit it. She turned away then, arms crossed tight across her chest, shaking her head slowly. When we opened this marriage, she said, voice flat, I thought maybe it would help us find each other again. That maybe we needed a jolt, not an ending. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I thought I was giving us a chance, she whispered. But you saw a door, and you walked right through it. Her voice broke, just slightly. I never wanted to lose you. You didn't, I said, taking a step closer. Don't lie to me anymore, she said, looking up. If you're in love with her, say it. I looked at her, at the woman I'd built a life with, the woman I once couldn't imagine living without. And I broke. I think I am. She nodded, tears falling silently now, but her face was stone. Then you need to go. I took a breath. I'll pack a bag. She didn't stop me, didn't follow me, didn't say another word. And as I walked up the stairs, I realized it wasn't just our marriage unraveling. It was everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and what it meant to be chosen. I didn't go to Kate's that night. I couldn't. Instead, I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just miles of empty roads under a sky that felt too big and too quiet. City lights fading in my rearview mirror. The hum of the engine beneath me, the only thing holding me together. I checked into a motel off the interstate. One of those cheap, off-brand places with paper-thin walls and peeling laminate furniture. I didn't even take off my shoes before collapsing onto the mattress. The weight of what has happened was too much to carry and too big to run from. Lauren's face haunted me. Her anger, yes, but more than that. Her pain. I'd never seen her eyes like that. Hollow. Raw. Like she'd finally stopped trying to fight for something that was already gone. And maybe it was. But knowing that didn't make it easier. The next morning, I woke to sunlight stabbing through the curtains and a phone full of messages. Kate, are you okay? I haven't heard from you. Kate, a few hours later, you don't have to explain anything. I just need to know where your head is. Lauren, nothing. That silence from her felt louder than anything else. I stared at Kate's messages for a long time before finally responding. Things blew up last night. I told her, I'm not at the house anymore. Her reply came fast. I'm sorry, but I'm also relieved. You've been living with one foot out the door. You needed to choose. And there it was. The line drawn in the sand. Kate wanted me to cross it. Later that day, I met her at a park near her apartment. She sat on a bench under a cluster of oak trees, nursing a coffee with both hands like it was her anchor. When she saw me, her face softened, but I could see the storm behind her eyes. You look like hell, she said gently. Feels accurate. I sat beside her, not touching, not speaking right away. The air was heavy with unsaid things. I left, I said. I know. You told me. No, I mean I left. I paused, but I don't know what I'm running toward. She turned to me. I'm not asking for promises, but I need to know, am I just the detour, or am I where you want to land? The question gutted me. I don't know how to unlearn the life I had with her, I admitted. But when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe again. That's not the same as love. I think it is. No, she said, her voice soft but firm. Love is a decision, a leap, not just a feeling. I need you to choose, not drift. Her words echoed all the way down. I didn't answer, not because I didn't want to, but because the weight of that choice scared the hell out of me. I'd spent months playing two lives like I could keep both from colliding. But now, here I was stripped down to the truth. There was no more middle. That night, I sat alone in Kate's apartment while she showered. Her place was familiar now, my toothbrush in the bathroom, a hoodie of mine draped on the back of her couch. I should have felt at home, but something inside me still itched, still pulled. I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Me and Lauren on our honeymoon. Drunk selfies from our 3rd anniversary. Her in the kitchen, flour on her cheek, baking some recipe she'd begged from her grandmother. That Lauren didn't exist anymore. But maybe neither did the version of me who loved her. Kate came out in a towel, hair damp, skin glowing. She looked at me with a kind of patience that didn't feel fair. You're not all the way here, she said, sitting beside me. I know. Then maybe you should go figure that out. You're asking me to leave? I'm asking you to be sure. If you're going to be with me, I need to know your heart isn't still standing in the wreckage of your marriage. I nodded, throat tight. She was right. I walked out of my house, but not fully out of my past. That weekend, I didn't see either of them. I stayed at a friend's place, neutral ground, a couch I could crash on without questions. I journaled for the first time in years, poured out everything I'd been too afraid to say. About Lauren, about Kate, about how I'd spent the last decade numbing myself with routine and calling it loyalty. About how I had let my marriage become a museum of old emotions and still called it love. On Sunday night, I stood outside my old house. I didn't go in, just stood on the sidewalk, staring at the window that used to be our bedroom. The light was off. A metaphor, maybe. I texted Lauren. I am sorry. For all of it. She replied the next morning. So am I. No, I'm good. No plea to come back. Just an end. That afternoon, I called Kate. Come over, I said. Are you sure? I am now. There was a long pause. Then a soft, okay. But even as I hung up, something deep inside me whispered, be careful what you chase. It might not be what you lost. Lauren called on a Tuesday. Not a text. Not a vague update or passive-aggressive comment. A call. When I saw her name flash on the screen, my chest tightened. I was sitting on Kate's couch, working from my laptop, coffee growing cold beside me. Sunlight pooled through the window, warming my legs, but all I felt was cold. I answered on the third ring. Hey, I said cautiously. Hey, she said back, quieter than I expected. Can we talk? I glanced down the hall. Kate was in the shower. Now, please, she said. Just come by. One last time. I almost said no. Almost told her it wasn't a good idea. That we'd said what needed to be said. But something in her voice pulled at me. Not desperation. Just finality. I told Kate I needed to run an errand. She smiled from the bathroom door, wrapped in a towel, unaware. I kissed her cheek and said I'd be back soon. Then I drove to the house I used to call home. It was exactly as I left it. The porch light was still out, the flower beds still slightly overgrown, the mailbox still leaning a little to the left. My key still worked. Lauren was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. She looked tired. Her hair was tied up, face bare, sweater sleeves pushed past her elbows. A mug of tea sat untouched in front of her. She didn't smile, didn't get up, just stared at me like I was both familiar and foreign. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded, staying by the door. You said you wanted to talk. I want you to come back. The words landed hard. She continued before I could respond. I know I asked for this, she said, voice calm. I opened the door. I thought it would help. I thought we'd find something buried under the years and the silence. But we didn't. You found someone else. I said nothing, because she was right. I'm not pretending I didn't fuck up, she added. I did. I got scared. I got bored. I thought spicing things up would bring us back to life. It didn't, I said quietly. She looked up at me then, eyes shining with tears she hadn't let fall. But maybe ending it could. I stepped forward, slowly. Lauren, I miss you, she whispered. Not just the idea of you. Not just the routines. You, the man who used to hold me in bed like the world was ending. The man who traced my spine with his fingers just to make me shiver. The man who made me feel safe. I don't know if I'm still that man. You are. You were. You can be. Her voice cracked. I want to try. I'll fight for you this time, the way I should have before. I'll go to therapy. I'll do the work. But I need to know you haven't given up on us. I closed my eyes. My whole body ached with her words. The sadness in them. The sincerity. Already left, I said. And I didn't run. You walked into someone else's arms, she said bitterly. No, I said gently. I walked out of the wreckage we built and found someone who reminded me I still have a pulse. She flinched. I hated myself for saying it, but it was the truth. I don't love her because she's not you, I added. I love her because I'm not who I was with you anymore, and I don't know how to go backward. She reached across the table, fingers trembling. Then, let's go forward. You and me. We start over. Strip it all down and rebuild. I stared at her hand, the one I used to hold in airports, in crowded bars, in bed, right after she'd come. Part of me wants to, I admitted, but it wouldn't be honest. Her fingers slowly curled into her palm. She nodded once, sharp and silent, and looked away. I loved you so much, she whispered. I loved you too, I said, voice raw. You were my whole world, and I think that's part of the problem. Why? Because I forgot how to be a man outside of being your husband. She didn't respond. I turned to leave, but she stopped me. One more thing. I look back. If she breaks your heart, don't come back here thinking I'm your safety net. I nodded. I wouldn't. She stood up then, her posture tall, even as her face crumbled behind the facade. Then goodbye. I stepped out into the cool afternoon air, and just like that, 17 years of love, of pain, of laughter and promises and Sunday mornings and slow sex and silent dinners. It all dissolved behind a closed door. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I drove to Kate's in silence, the kind that feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. When I walked in, she looked up from the couch, eyes hopeful, cautious. "Well," she asked. I walked over, sat beside her, and took her hand. I told her I'm not coming back. Her expression didn't light up with joy. It didn't melt into a romantic sigh. She just stared at me, eyes scanning mine. "Are you sure?" I nodded. But inside, I wasn't sure of anything, except that something irreversible had just happened. I'd chosen. Now I had to live with it. The first week at Kate's felt like falling into a dream I'd been chasing for years. Mornings with her were soft and slow. Coffee in bed, tangled sheets, quiet laughter. She wore my old t-shirts like she used to, danced barefoot in the kitchen, teased me for how I folded towels. It was comfortable, familiar, like a life we'd paused and now resumed without missing a beat. But it didn't take long before the dream started feeling strange. Maybe it was the way the bathroom door stuck slightly when I closed it, or how her dog barked every time a delivery came and she snapped at it like it was an interruption to her curated calm. Or maybe it was me, walking around with a suitcase heart and trying to unpack pieces of myself into a life that had already gone on without me. One night, we cooked dinner together, something we used to do in our 20s. Wine was flowing. The playlist was the same. So was the way she looked at me, still full of that heady affection. But something felt off. Not wrong, just unfamiliar, despite how familiar it should have been. As we sat eating pasta on the balcony, she leaned over and kissed my cheek. "I'm really glad you're here," she said. "I am too," I replied. And I meant it. Sort of. That night, we had sex again, slow, intense, with the kind of eye contact that strips you down. But afterward, as she laid on my chest and traced patterns over my ribs, I felt this strange tightness in my throat. Like I was waiting for something, for the euphoria to hit, for the certainty to land. It didn't. Over the next few days, small arguments started surfacing. Petty things. Dishes in the sink. The way I left my shoes near the door. My phone buzzing during her favorite show. She rolled her eyes more than she used to. And I snapped more than I should have. The worst part? It didn't surprise me. One night, we went out to dinner at a restaurant we'd always said we'd try back when we were younger, poorer, and too busy being in love. It should have felt like a celebration. A full circle moment. But when the hostess asked, "Have you two been here before?" I watched Kate hesitate, then smile. "No, but we've wanted it for a long time." And that's when it hit me. We weren't the same people we used to be. Not even close. That night, after we got home, I finally said what had been chewing at the inside of my chest for days. "Do you ever wonder if we just missed our moment?" Kate looked at me from across the room. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it was perfect because we were young, hungry, hopeful, and now we're just trying to rewind a movie that's already ended." Her face changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. "You think we're forcing this?" "I think," I said carefully, "that we remember how it felt more than how it was." She came closer, arms folded. "So what are you saying? That you left your marriage, broke Lauren's heart, moved in with me. For what? A nostalgia trip?" "No," I said quickly. "It's not that. I love being with you. I love you. But something's different. You've barely unpacked," she said bitterly. "You're still half living out of a bag. Because I don't know if I fit here," I confessed. "Not with you. With this version of us." Kit was quiet for a long time. Then, "You wanted a fantasy. And now that it's real, you're scared." "Maybe," I admitted. "But I'm not scared of you. I'm scared that we both walked into this thinking it would feel like it did before." She nodded slowly, biting the inside of her cheek. "You think you made a mistake?" "I think," I said, "I didn't realize how much I needed to find myself before I tried to find us again." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just turned away. You should go, she whispered. I stood there, frozen, until she said it again. You should go. So I did. I packed it dofu bake. Threw on the hoodie she gave me 2 weeks earlier, and walked out into the night without a destination. No wife. No girlfriend. Just me. Alone in a car, I no longer had a home to drive to. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I let myself feel it all. The loss, the shame, the freedom, and the weight of a truth I hadn't wanted to face. I hadn't been choosing between two women. I've been running for myself. 3 months passed. That's how long it took before I saw either of them again. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing special, just a one-bedroom with too much beige and too much quiet. The walls were thin. My neighbor played jazz at all hours of the night. But the place was mine. I needed that. I filled the silence with books I'd meant to read for years. Took long walks without a destination. Saw a therapist twice a week and, for the first time, started unpacking not just the last few months, but everything before that. The marriage, the numbness, the quiet resentment, the years of convincing myself that loyalty was the same thing as connection. It wasn't. For a long time, I didn't reach out to either of them. I figured I owed them both distance, space, and maybe I owe myself that too. But eventually it happened. I was at a cafe I used to go to on Sunday mornings, back when Lauren and I still believed breakfast dates could fix whatever we didn't want to say out loud. I was reading a novel I bought just because I liked the cover. And then I looked up. Lauren. She was standing in line, hair longer now, wearing a denim jacket I'd never seen before. She looked good, not untouched by what happened, but lighter, like someone who'd dropped a heavy suitcase at the side of the road and just kept walking. She didn't see me at first. I stood, slowly, and took a step forward. Her eyes met mine. She paused, then smiled. It wasn't bitter, wasn't sarcastic, just warm, familiar. Hey, I said. Hey, she replied. How have you been? I laughed softly. That's a loaded question. I'm sure. We ordered coffee, sat at a table, talked like people who used to share everything and now shared nothing, but didn't hate each other for it. She told me she'd taken up yoga, was working fewer hours, reading again, that she'd been dating casually but nothing serious, that Evan fizzled out fast. I told her the truth, that Kate and I had ended things, that I was living alone, that I was trying to figure out who I was without someone else defining it for me. She nodded like she understood, because she did. There was a silence between us, not awkward, just full, like we were both holding a mirror between us, seeing what we'd survived. I miss you sometimes, she said eventually. Me too, I replied. But I don't want to go back, she added. And God, neither did I. I reached across the table and took her hand, not with longing, just with respect. We gave a good run, I said. We did, she smiled. We really did. We hugged before parting. A long, quiet hug that held everything we couldn't fix and everything we didn't have to carry anymore. And then she walked away, and I didn't watch her go. 2 weeks later, I saw Kate. She asked to meet. She looked radiant, glowing with a kind of settled confidence I hadn't seen before. Her smile wasn't as wide, her eyes not as bright, but she was real, present. I wasn't angry, she said, just hurt. I know. I think part of me hoped you'd come back, but the other part is glad you didn't. I nodded. We wanted what we had so badly, we forgot why it didn't work the first time. We were trying to resurrect ghosts, she said softly, and pretend they were new. We walked through the park afterward, said all the things that needed saying. No promises, no regrets. When we hugged goodbye, she kissed my cheek. Thank you, she whispered, for reminding me what it's like to feel again. Thank you, I said back, for reminding me I still could. I went home that night and stood at my window for a long time, watching the lights of the city flicker like quiet little endings and beginnings. I wasn't in love, not with Lauren, not with Kate, but I wasn't lost anymore either. I'd spent so long blaming them, blaming circumstances, blaming routine, blaming everything, because it was easier than facing the truth. I didn't know how to be honest with myself. I wanted passion, but I avoided vulnerability. I wanted love, but I feared need. I wanted connection, but didn't know how to ask for it. Now, I'm learning. One step, one breath, one honest moment at a time. And maybe someday, there'll be someone new, someone I meet not as the man I used to be, but as the one I've finally become. Until then, I'm good. Alone, but not lonely. Just real.